Hare Krishna, my name is Jaya Rādhikā Devī Dāsī. I am a disciple of His Holiness Jayapatākā Swami.
Hare Krishna, I am her mother, Racitāmbara Devī. Jayapataka Maharaj is my very elevated godbrother.
The first time I met Guru Maharaj, well, there's a little backstory. So we were in Bhadrak, and Guru Maharaj had placed my parents in Bhadrak.
In Orissa. And there was a devotee in Bhubaneswar, Bhagavat, who wanted us there. And he kept trying to get Guru Maharaj to give permission for us to come. And Guru Maharaj always said no. He wanted us to stay in Bhadrak. And one day, Bhagavat arrived in a van and he said, "Okay, I finally got permission. Pack your bags, let's go." You know, and what? Really? Yes, let's go right now. I have the car waiting. We're leaving right now. So we left. Okay. And we arrived in Bhubaneswar. And then we found out we had actually been kidnapped. Guru Maharaj had never given permission. So then Guru Maharaj was coming to Bhubaneswar, and my parents were a little nervous about how he would react when he saw us there. So they wanted to make a really nice presentation for his arrival, but we didn't have much money, so they wanted to make like a red carpet for him, but all we could afford was red lining cloth. So they bought this red lining cloth, and they laid the way from where the car would stop up to his rooms, his quarters, and then we decorated the sides of it with fruits and flowers. And I was given the special responsibility of having a basket of flower petals, and the idea was that Guru Maharaj would step out of the car and then walk along this red carpet, and I would get to run ahead on the side and throw flower petals at his lotus feet. And how old were you?
I was 5 years old. And I was very excited about this. And then Guru Maharaj arrived, the car pulled up, and he stepped out of the car, just his toes on the edge of this red carpet. And he was very serious, and he was just looking at this carpet. And I was so excited, I was waiting for him to start walking so I could do my service. And he just stood there staring. He didn't say anything or do anything. And then he made a move like he was not going to walk on it, like a walk around it. And it was building up, the pressure was building up inside me, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I shouted out, "Well, step on it then!" Like this. And he looked at me and he said, "But it's so beautiful." And I started to cry, and I said, "Step on it, it's for you!" Like this. And so he walked all along, and I got to run ahead and throw my petals at his lotus feet. That was my first meeting with him, and I felt so peaceful and happy that I got to do that service for him.
And what did he give you on that visit?
Oh.
Or who did he give you?
Yes. He gave me Venkateshwar, a deity of Venkateshwar, about this big, and also of Ganesh, that big. And he told me that as long as I worship Ganesh, he will always remove all the stumbling blocks, all the obstacles and stumbling blocks on my path back to Godhead.
Mm.
I was 5.
Which year was that?
78.
78. It was 78.
Yeah. So somehow or other we ended up in Mayapur after some years, and I'll tell you a story of, I can tell you a couple of stories. So I'll go with Jagannath first. Okay. So anyway, around this time I had started a small little girls' school
Jaya Rādhikā and the few little Bengali girls that were here. And we were living at the Goshala because there was no place else for, it was a very nice place to live and there was no place else for Westerners to live. Anyway, we were living there, and around that time the Jagannath temple up the road was coming possibly into the hands of ISKCON. The old devotee who ran that place, the old pujari there, he was getting quite elderly. He had no family, no sons to leave the deities to. In Naishtika Brahmachari, and he had no disciples or anything. So he came to Jayapataka Maharaj and said, I'm really pleased with the worship that I see going on in ISKCON, and I'd like to leave the Jagannath deities, Rajapur deities, to ISKCON. But as we know, in India, any kind of legal papers and changeover and whatever takes a long time. So Jayapataka Maharaj said, we should not do any worship there, start any worship there, until they're for sure ours. Because the thing is that to start worship and then stop it is not a good thing. So nothing was being done with the deities, but then Anakadandabi, who lived right across from us, the room across from us, and his wife, Vrindavan Biharini, she was cooking every day for Radha-Madhava, the Rajbhog, and he was doing the offering. And he told her one day, I'm feeling very bad for the Jagannath deities. They're not getting any meal. So why don't you just cook a little extra when you're making the offering for Radha-Madhava, and I will take that. I'll go on my bicycle after I make Radha-Madhava's offering. I'll go up to Jagannath temple and feed them. So she said, okay. And they were doing like that, just quietly doing like that on their own for quite some days. And then what happened was, one day, somehow or other, Jayapataka Maharaj found out about it, and he said, well, no, we're not supposed to do this, because we don't know yet if they're ours. They're not really our deities to look after yet. So he stopped. So after a few days, he had a dream. We heard him in the night jump up and was yelling. He had this dream that he went to the Jagannath temple just to take their darshan, and he opened the door and there was nobody there. And he thought, where are the deities? And he looked, and they were running across the field like this towards Mayapur. And he said, where are you going? Come back, come back. And they turned over their shoulder and they said, no, you don't feed us anymore. We're going to eat with Radha-Madhava. So he jumped out of bed, and we heard him come banging out of his house and running down the stairs, and we looked over the balcony. He was running across the rice fields towards the temple, and he ran right up to Jayapataka Maharaj's room, banged on his door. It was like 2 in the morning, and he told him, I just had this dream. And Jayapataka Maharaj said, start full worship immediately. So then at Mangal Arati, he called me over, and I was like, hiding behind a pillar sort of thing, and as I usually did, and he called me, come here. He called me over and he said, we're starting to worship the Jagannath deities. They have nothing. I want you to make 5 outfits immediately. Go to Calcutta today and get the cloth. Yes, Maharaj. So the little girls that I had, my daughter and the little Bengali girls, we made the first 5 outfits for Lord Jagannath by Jayapataka Maharaj's mercy.
I think I was around 7 at that time.
Yeah, about 7. The kids were around 7, 8, like that. So, you want to go and then I'll go?
Well, you were his secretary. Why don't you tell us some of that?
I'll just tell you this other story then while I'm talking. Is that one time we invited him over to come to our house for lunch, to the Goshala. Those were in the days when you could invite Maharaj over to your house for lunch, So he wasn't as busy in those days. So anyway, so we called him over for lunch, and he came to our apartment. And at that time, my husband, Chaitanya Singh Prabhu, had hand-carved a really nice bow and a bunch of arrows. He was a guy that did a lot of hand stuff, you know. Anyway, so Maharaj saw that, but Prabhu had not been able to string the bow because it was so strong. So he said, why isn't the bow strung? And my husband said, well, it's too strong. I haven't been able to do it. So Jayapataka Maharaj took the bow and he very easily strung it. Kind of like Lord Ramachandra, you know. He just like took the bow and strung it. And he said, well, I'd like to try it out. I see you have arrows there that you made. Let's go. So we went down, all four of us, including Maharaj. We went downstairs by the Goshala, and at that time there was just the road to the Goshala and no buildings across from it. It was just empty, just field grass for the cows. So he said, where should I aim for? And we looked and there was nothing but grass, but way out in the field there was one stick that was sticking a little higher than the grass. So I said, jokingly, I said, oh, aim for that, Maharaj. So he said, okay. And he took the bow and he put the arrow in, and then he shot it up, way up in the air, so high that we couldn't see it anymore. And the arrow came down, 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 and right into the end of the stick. I promise. Well, it just came down. Anyway, yes. He's so expert at anything he does. And I'm told, so we gave him the bow, and I'm told that's still sitting in the corner of his office. Anyway, over to you.
There's many little stories, but one that really sticks in my mind is when I was 9 years old, I went to school in France. I went to Gurukul in France. And so I didn't see Guru Maharaj for several years. So the last time I saw him, I was 9. The next time I saw him, I was 16. And I was in Bhaktivedanta Manor, and I was coming down the stairs, the grand staircase there. And I suddenly realized Guru Maharaj was coming up the staircase. So I stopped, I stepped to the side and I paid my obeisances. And I stood up thinking he'd walk past me, and he had stopped. And he was waiting for me to get up. And he said, oh, Jaya Radhe, how are you? And I was so shocked. I couldn't believe after all those years, I was a little child the last time he saw me. Now I was a teenager, and he recognized me and remembered my name, even though he'd seen thousands of other people in that time. He still remembered me, and he asked me, how's your mother, Racitāmbara? How's your father, Chaitanya Simha? Like this. It's just that the personal aspect.
Personal, that's it.
Yeah, of Guru Maharaj is just incredible.
Very, very caring, very thoughtful. One time I was in Mangal Arati. I was running the Gurukula next to the Goshala at that time, and we had an international boys' school. And I was thinking, I have to go prepare classes. So I did my circumambulation around Tulsi Devi 3 times on the girls' side, and then I thought, I'm just going to sneak out and go to school because I have things to do. So I was coming down with my head down, trying to get past the men to go out into the courtyard. And suddenly there was a wall of saffron in front of me. I looked up. There's Jayapataka Maharaj. He said, Mother Racitāmbara, how can I help you in your service? I'm fine, Maharaj. But he was, he said, please, if you need something, tell me. And he would very often come on his bicycle. He had a bicycle with a holder on the side for his danda. And he would come, in these early days, he would come on his bicycle to the school, and he would play Hari Ball. And so they would throw a ball back and forth. They'd go into the pukur, and he would have everybody, all his team tied a little something around their head, like a scarf, like cowherd boys. And then he would just jump in the water, and they would have this team thing back and forth. For hours they would play. And his team always won. And then I would tell him, oh, Maharaj, we're trying to make a special meal because we know you're on a special diet. He was on a special diet by that point. And he said, well, what are the children eating? I said, well, we made a feast for them because you came. He said, I'll eat the feast with them. He always ate the feast with the kids. So he came very often for the children. And then he had been away for a long time one time. You know how he travels all over. And he came back, and I happened to run into him in the corridor of the Long Building. And I said, Maharaj, you haven't been to school for a long time. He said, well, I've been away. And I said, well, you know, the children are missing you. And he said, okay, I'll be there in half an hour. And he came. He just dropped, I don't know what else he was doing, but he was there, and we just canceled school and played with him all day. Very, very thoughtful, very loving and kind towards the children, and always concerned for everybody in their service.
So when I was 19, I decided that I wanted to take him as my spiritual master if he would accept me. So what had happened was, previously to that, I had really, when I had gone to France Gurukula, I had taken shelter of Bhagavan, and then later he fell down. So I was really devastated, and I was like, I'm never taking a guru. I said, fine, you know. And then my mother said, no, you have to take a guru. You need that link to go back to Godhead. So I started really thinking, you know, who do I have that relationship with? Because when I was growing up, I knew all the gurus personally at that point. Now there's many more gurus, but at that point, the 12 gurus, I knew them all personally. They were friends of my parents and whatnot. So I got to get prasad from them, or sit on their lap when I was little, or different things like that. So I had quite, like they were like my uncles in that, you know. So I really thought about which guru was more like a father than an uncle. And I thought, wow, from the very beginning, from that first meeting with Jayapataka Maharaj, I had always had that kind of guru-disciple relationship with him. It wasn't ever, you know, the sitting on his lap, or just the more casual relationship. So I said, yes, this is my spiritual master. Mm-hmm. So then when I was 19, he came to England, he came to Soho Street. So I went to see him. Very nervous. I was really nervous. I brought my mother with me. He's probably going to say no, you know. And all our god sisters there, they were all like, good luck, good luck. They were all outside the door like, go on, you can do it, you can do it. Like this. And I went in with her, and I was so nervous I couldn't speak at first. And so my mother actually asked for me. Would you please accept my daughter as your disciple? And he just looked at me. You know that look that reaches deep into the soul? You know? He just looked at me, and he said, why? And my mind went completely blank. And I didn't know what to say. And I just said, because you're so wonderful, Maharaj. I was so nervous. And he looked at me, and then he said, yes. And I didn't know what, I was so nervous, I didn't know what he meant. I said, yes, what, Maharaj? And he said, yes, I will take you as my disciple. So much relief. And then we had, you know, a little bit more of a darshan. And then I came outside, and all my future god sisters were all waiting outside for me, and they like jumped me. I came out, and they said, what did he say? What did he say? I said, he said, yes. And they said, yes, what? I said, yes. He said, yes, he'll take me as his disciple. And they went, just like that? Like, usually he thinks about it for a little while first. He doesn't just say yes like that. Who are you? I said, I'm nobody. Maybe it's because of my mother. I don't know. But yes, so that's...
He said to me when I first asked, he said, she wants to take initiation from me? Like that. Do you remember that?
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
Like he's so humble, you know.
So
he's
humble.
Just so, from me? You're so humble.
Yeah, actually, when he said that, that just made my determination stronger.
Yeah.
Like, this is the right person, you know. And then he came. The next time he came to the manor, I was supposed to get initiated, but the temple president somehow he didn't know about it, and so he wouldn't allow me to take initiation. I had to have his permission first or something. So I didn't actually get initiated until some months later, after I was married. A month after I was married, then I got initiated. And Guru Maharaj came in. He was just there overnight, just overnight, as he often does. And so then he came, and I had to go up to have the pre-initiation darshan with him. And as I'm walking up the stairs, there's another girl, a girl I'd known for many years from Soho Street. She's also walking up the stairs. And I said, "Are you also getting initiated?" And she said, "I don't know. They just told me to come for the darshan." So I said, I hope so. She goes, "Me too." So we went and we sat down, and Guru Maharaj was asking us different questions and talking to us. And then he said, "Oh, and you've done the test, right? The pre-initiation test." And both of us looked at each other, and I could see the devastation on her face. She hadn't done it. And I knew she could see the devastation on my face. I didn't even know there was a test. No one had told me. And we looked at each other, and we looked at him, and we went, "No, Guru Maharaj." And he goes, "Who's God?" And again, we looked at each other, and then we looked back at him, and we said, "Krishna." He goes, "You passed the test."
So merciful, so merciful.
And then her name was Grace. So then he asked me, "Do you want to change your name?" Because I was born in ISKCON and I had the name Jaya Rādhikā, so he was giving me the option of changing it or not. And I had been waiting to change my name. I couldn't wait to change it. I went, "Yes, Guru Maharaj, yes, please change it." And he gave me one of those looks, you know, where he didn't say anything, but it was like, "Why?" You know, he just looked deep inside like this. And I didn't know what to say again. My mind just went blank. And then somebody else in the room said, "Well, there's a lot of Jaya Rādhikās. It's quite a common name." And I said, "Yes, I know 5 of them, not including me." And he goes, "Ah." So then he turned to my husband, who was standing by the door, and he said, "What do you think her name should start with, J or R?" And he said, "Well, it would be nice if it was J and R, because we all call her JR." Guru Maharaj looked at him and he goes, "You call her JR?" Like this. And Prabhupada said, "Yes, well, sometimes, occasionally, not really." And all evening as I was getting ready, and I was wondering, what's my name going to be? What's my name going to be? And then the initiation came time, and it was time for me to step up. I got my beads, and Guru Maharaj held the beads out to me. I put my hands out, he pulled them back. "Your name," building up, "is Jaya Rādhikā." And he held out the beads. And I thought, "Oh, I'm still JR." And I put out my hands again for the beads, and he pulled them back again. And he said, "It means," he said, Jaya means victory, and Da means to give. So your name is a name of Radharani, meaning the highest, the giver of the highest victory, which is Krishna Prema. And then he gave me my beads. And my friend, Grace, she got initiated Gomati. So it was a very personal initiation. It's just the 2 of us. And the next morning, we I went to the airport with him and saw him off. It was really just, Yeah.
Speaking of seeing him off, one time he came to Perth. Well, should I tell that Perth story? That's
If you want.
Well, that was an
Don't get
interesting.
into too much detail.
Okay. Oh, maybe I won't tell that one then. But anyway, he came to Perth, and as he was leaving, he was just there for a day or so, as he does, and then he was going off someplace else in the world, and I said, we were seeing him off at the airport, I said, Maharaj, you travel so much. You're always on a plane. You just stay a short time in any one place, and you're moving along. And, how do you do it? How do you do this? And he said, I pray a lot. That's what he said. He said, please pray for me.
Yes, he was just going in.
Again,
into
he'd
the
just
gate,
come and he
and
was just leaving.
He turned to us and he said, please pray for me.
Yeah.
And that particular visit, he spent the night in Perth, and then he was in Melbourne for Guru Puja. He was in Sydney by the afternoon, and the next morning he was in New Govardhan.
Yeah.
Or by that evening, I think actually he was in New Govardhan. Didn't work out. There was some violence. And so then when Guru Maharaj came to Perth, everyone was telling me they wouldn't listen to the fact that there was, actually I wasn't even really talking about violence or whatever, but they were all telling me that I should just keep going as I was and like this, and I had 2 children and it was not a good situation. So I went to Guru Maharaj and I told him about everything that was happening, and he told me that was it. He said, your marriage is finished. He said, you should not live together ever again. He said, if possible, no divorce, but you should not live together again. And I felt like so much relief, because no one could tell me that I was being a bad wife, or because this was my spiritual master's instruction. Then later on, a few months later, I ended up coming for Gopani to Mayapur. My mother was here in Mayapur, and we met someone along the way to the Goshala, and she stopped and she was talking to them, and she was telling them a story that I had never heard before.
I was.
You were telling them, yes. I hadn't heard until that moment that she had written, when she found out what was happening, she had written to Guru Maharaj.
Oh, let me tell.
Okay.
Okay, when I found out what was happening, she was not being treated well, then I immediately wrote to her Guru Maharaj and I said, please, this is your spiritual daughter, and I don't know where else to turn. I'm in Mayapur, she's in Perth, Australia. Somehow she needs help. She badly needs help, and I'm asking you for your prayers or your mercy in some way to help her. So it happened that he was in an airport in...
He was in
Malaysia. He was in an airport in Malaysia, and he had 2 tickets in his hand. You know, Mara, she's wheeling, dealing. So he has 2 tickets. Meanwhile, Harikesh had just left in Germany, and Mayapur was about to have the biggest flood they'd ever had. So he had the 2 tickets, and he was waiting for a word from both places to see which situation was worse, and he would jump on that plane and go. And then he logged in to get
at the airport
to get those answers, and he got my letter that his spiritual daughter was in great distress, and his god sister was pleading for help. And he went straight to the desk and he said, when is your next plane for Perth? And he said, we have one leaving in 45 minutes. He said, put me on it. And he flew immediately to Perth to help his little spiritual daughter. And I'm indebted all my life to him for that.
I had actually written to him like the day before, asking him if he would please come to Perth, because I knew he was close. He was in Malaysia.
And he told me no, he couldn't because he had these two places to go to. And then suddenly I got word the next morning that he's arriving. and I just thought, oh, thank you, that's Krishna. But I didn't know this backstory until like 3 months later. Yeah.
We're very, very indebted to him. So my daughter's his disciple, my granddaughter's his disciple. We're very indebted to him.
He also told me, I used to do a lot of drama here in Mayapur when I was here before, and he could be in the middle of a meeting, it didn't matter. I'd send the children with an invitation, whatever he was doing, he would drop everything and he would come to watch the first show of the drama, always. And after one of those shows, he instructed me that I should always do drama. Yeah, so I'm back here for that. I'm trying to follow his instructions.
I'm sure there's many, many little stories, but somehow
there are
in front of the camera and the lights, like
there are lots of little ones. One time he told me there was other devotees, things happening, and suddenly he turned to me and he said, I drowned when I was little, you know. And then he was telling me the story about how it was the lake, the Great Lake that's on the American side.
Lake Erie?
Is it Lake Erie?
I think so.
One of the Great Lakes. He had gone in swimming, but he had drowned. He was unconscious, and they had to resuscitate him. Like that. There's lots of little stories like that. He also told me after his stroke, and he told me that he'd left his body, and Krishna told him it's time to come home. And Guru Maharaj said, "No, I'm not ready to go yet."
Who says no to Krishna?
Krishna said, "It's time." Guru Maharaj said, "No, I still have so much to do. I need some more time." And so Krishna said, "Okay, all right." So then he came back into the body, and Krishna said it would not be a easy situation, and Guru Maharaj said, "I don't care." And I owe Guru Maharaj so much.
And at that time of his stroke, I was teaching in Smith, and it was a time when there was like many religions were coming. They came to Mayapur. The heads of many religions came to Mayapur to have a big interfaith conference. They would meet just once every 5 years or something, but somehow they had 3 choices of places, and they chose Mayapur to come. So
because Maharaj had passed away in Manipur.
Yes, Rup Damodar Maharaj had left, and he was part of that group. So to honor him, they came here to Mayapur. So they were here, and I was supposed to meet with them. But because Maharaj suddenly had the stroke, then I had the children, the whole school, make cards for him to, tell him that we really cared and we were praying for him and everything. And so I was busy with that, so I came late to meet the people, and I apologized. I said, "Oh, I'm very sorry that I'm late, but I had the children at school making cards because one of our leaders, just had a stroke." And they said, "Oh, we know, we're all praying for him. As a matter of fact, we put it out around the world, and around the world, everyone in the mosques, in the synagogues, in the temples, in the churches, in all the different places around the world, they're all praying for him."
Not only that,
such an elevated soul.
I was the news channel for the local people. A lot of them would come to me and they'd ask me, "How's Guru Maharaj? How's he doing? What's the update?" So I'd be giving them updates. I'd be trying to find out what the updates were and giving it to them. The local villagers, many of them were Muslim, and they always, when they talk about Guru Maharaj, they always call him Guru Maharaj.
Yeah.
One Muslim brother of mine, I've known him since I was 6 years old and he was like 10 or 12, something like that.
Something like that.
And his name's Nintu. And he would come to me every day. What's the update? How's Guru Maharaj? And then he told me how when he was little, he was one of the people laying the floor for the long building. And Guru Maharaj came along and he said, oh, you're not doing it right. Here, let me show you. And Guru Maharaj got down on his hands and knees and he showed him how to make the floor like that.
The long building.
That was his little personal experience with Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj is extremely personal, and it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. He's always loving and caring and personal, and his memory is incredible. He always, it doesn't matter how many years pass, he always remembers. He remembers you, and by name. We'd be I remember the first time we picked him up in Perth. The first time he came to Perth, I heard he was in Malaysia, and I'd written and asked him if he would come, and he came. And at the airport, we went to pick him up. It was his first time to Perth. And we went to pick him up, and someone had brought him some sweets. And he was going and talking to different random people in the airport and giving them prasadam like this. And they were all just like, wow, who is this wonderful person?
And garlands, too.
And
Giving garlands.
Yes. And then later on, I thanked him so much for coming. And he said, I came because you asked me to. And then a little later in the day, my former husband thanked him. He said, thank you so much for coming. He said, I came for your wife. Your wife asked me to come, so I came.
And even just very recently, because of the lockdown, we came here just days before everything locked down. So we were a year and a half in our apartment, and many parents came to us and said, can you teach, because we're known as teachers, so can you teach my child, to the point that our house was full. And so then one parent came and he said, look, I'm renting 2 flats across from each other, you can expand the school. And he actually paid the rent and everything. So we were just making new desks and everything, we were about to start. And I got a call from the co-directors to come on a Zoom conference, and I thought, uh-oh, what have I done? Why are they calling me? Anyway, and they said, we would like you to come into Smith's and take over Smith's and, get it better. And I said very respectfully, no, I'm very sorry, but I have my own school going on, and I'm about to expand. I have many students. And they asked me 3 times, and I said no 3 times. And then they put Jayapataka Maharaj on. He said, Mother Racitāmbara. I said, Maharaj, when would you like me in there? He said, how can you say no? He said, well, this is Saturday, Mother Racitāmbara. How about Monday? I said, yes, Maharaj, I'll be there. That's why I'm back in Smith. He's not a person you can say no to. He knows things. He knows how things should be,
He's such a caring father. He's such a caring father. And he really cares about the children.
He really does. Yeah. He really does.
Jayapataka Maharaj, Guru Maharaj.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare.